Hello, and welcome to this Power Breakfast presentation from the Singapore PowerShell User Group. My name is Matt Hitchcock. I'm a PowerShell MVP and lead of the user group. And today's presentation is from my co-lead Milton, who will be presenting on why DSC, why now. It was really good to have Milton on to present on this particular topic because he's very new to it, and there's a lot to be gained from listening to people who are new to a topic sharing what they know. And hopefully this trend can continue with other user group members in future. With that, I'll hand over to Milton and we'll catch you next month. Thank you.
Today's session is about, I call it a title, why DSC now, because part of this slide deck is extracted from one of the session I presented to my company, to the team, and to the various business unit. So it is kind of my last pitch to the organization so that we could pick up a little bit on PowerShell DSC. So to make sure that the developers in professional service. Oh, sorry, give me a minute. Let me know if this is better, because I don't know whether it's a construction nearby my place or is it the fan beside me. So now I've turned off everything, I've closed the window, so there shouldn't be any sound right now.
It is better, yeah, no problem.
Okay.
Cool, thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Like what I say, this is something that I shared with the management and to the developers and the professional service, because they are the one who is always delivering projects, software projects, whether it's SharePoint.net, custom applications. So this is something that I pitched to them recently. So the agenda for today is, so I'll just cut off an introduction about myself. I hope most of you know me already. So next is I'll just touch on later on what's DSC. I understand, put in a few slides where you cross-reference to the past presenter like Steven Moraski. Next is some scenario and configuration. This is definitely something that I plug out directly from the other slide deck. So, and some of the traditional way of doing things, trying to pitch out, trying to mimic on how the developers are working, how the business unit are working, how currently they are doing things. So I'll then move on to how I educate them to perhaps adopt the DSC way, using PowerShell DSC. And lastly, I'll wrap it up with what is other recommendation, other DSC way, like which we will talk about later. So I'm Milton. So currently I'm working in Dimension Data. So you can find me on Twitter at Milton Goh, and my blogs is shown. So I'm an MCC and I've passed the certificate exam. Definitely not using any cheat. So I'm also the co-lead at Singapore PowerShell User Group. So what is DSC? So DSC is a short form for desired state configuration, which is released in October 2013. is a platform that provides the management of configuration data. Okay, so in short, it's just trying to ensure that component of the server or data center always have the correct configuration, mainly allow continuous deployment, prevent configuration drift, and uses language extension and provider to enable decorative, autonomous, and idempotent deployment. So, in short, in summary, okay, is to ensure that whatever is on all similar server like web server, application server, database server that requires to have the same feature are all uniform. You will not have one server and there's drifted apart where it has a feature that being installed that is not on other servers. So you have to be consistent, because certain bugs arise because of certain bugs or security breaches arise because of added features or something of that sort. So the prerequisite for desired state configuration is it was first introduced in part of Windows Management Framework 4.0, which is already pre-installed in Windows 8.1 and Windows Server 2012 R2. So, and it's also available for Windows 7, Windows Server 2008 R2, and Windows Server 2012. Okay, so it's not available for Windows 8 because Windows 8.1 is a free upgrade to Windows 8. Okay, so therefore WMF4 is not available for Windows 8. Okay, in order to run desired state configuration, you must have WMF4. Okay, so if you don't know whether you are able to run desired state configuration, you can check the version of PowerShell using the console. So just do a $PS version table and see what PowerShell version you're running. So, but as long as if you're trying out, if you're on Windows Server 2012 R2, you will have it pre-enabled, pre-installed. Yeah. So that's something that I found too. You need to ensure that the KB288200 is installed. So if not, DSC will not work properly. So it shouldn't be much of a problem. Just check through your Windows update history. Okay, so how does DSC work? So DSC is being put into three phases, where it's known as the pull or push model, the authoring phase, staging, and make it so. So okay, just to have a brief overview, is that there's the pull model and the push model, where the server okay, in terms of the pull model, oh shucks, I can't remember this part, sorry. Okay, so for the push, the DSC server pushes the file to the server and asks the machine to look exactly how the configuration should be. Okay, so there's the push. So from a centralized server, where in my lab we mimic in such a way that the domain controller should be the one that does the pushing of all the configuration to the web server, the application server, and database server. Okay. Give me a minute.
So yeah, when you're using push, that's when you kind of like apply a configuration manually, and when you have a pull, the node will kind of check in and kind of reapply any changes at kind of particular times, right?
Yeah, automatically. Yeah, sorry. That
Yeah.
portion is that on the pool itself, right? It will perform a resynchronization somewhere in the range of 15 to 30 minutes automatically, and it can be configured in whichever way. What's the time frame, or I would say it's the interval that you want to pull the configuration. People, some client, perhaps they wouldn't want to pull for the configuration file that often. So probably you could set around 12 hours, 24 hours, depending on how much changes is being done in the environment. So the push one is like what Matthew has mentioned. Thank you. Is the manual portion of getting the configuration onto the server. Okay.
Yeah. So people tend to kind of begin with push.
Yes.
And you'll put in a push model into kind of environments which are kind of pre-production, because you'll only want to apply changes in that when you're actually making a change. Whereas in production, you would want to use pull, because by then you've actually tried all of what you're applying in pre-production, and you should know it works, and any kind of nodes in production, I guess you would want to always have that same configuration applied. So pull is more kind of appropriate there.
Yep. So yeah. So the overview of this DSC is that it started off with it's just a PS1 PowerShell script, and then which I will demo later or explain a little bit later. So later with just a PowerShell script, and then you turn it into MOF file, and then it's being pushed over to the target node where you execute and then read the configuration, so that it can turn itself into what it should be, like something, for example, where like what Don Jones has explained before, in TechEd, say that it's something like the parents wants the child to always wear a green colored clothing. Yeah, so you set a configuration, the child will always put on the green clothes no matter what until the configuration changed, or the configuration you decide to change the configuration. Yeah. So some of the reference from the past presentation, part of the Power Breakfast, the last one in August is by Steven Moraski. So he explained a little bit on the desired state configuration in the real world. So part of my learning is from the 3DSC ebook by Don Jones and Steven Moraski that can be found in PowerShell.org, and also a little bit of reading by the introduction of PowerShell 4.0 desired state configuration by Scripting Guide. So so this is the scenario. So in order to explain to the professional service in my company, so I say, imagine that you all have a project that's hosting a custom .NET application. Okay, so the website is developed for one of the government body. That's usually what we always do. So I call it, I changed the name to Ministry of PowerShell. So the current infrastructure that we have is about 4 web front end, 2 application server, and 2 database server. So this is just the production environment minus away from staging, the UAT, and the development environment. So all this environment, in my opinion, or in any other senses, it should mimics the same configuration. What kind of feature is being added from time to time. It all should be uniform across, from the developer to the QA to the tester to the project manager and all the way to the UAT environment where the user cares. All this configuration on the server should be uniform. So a sample kind of server configuration, this is something really simple. This is the bare minimum to host perhaps a .NET application. So let's say that the web server has a required this feature web server, IIS, and .NET framework that's spread across all 3 servers. an application server should have the application server feature enabled. So the usual thing I always like to talk about the traditional way of doing things by the people. When the project is being pitched, everything is okay. When it's being pushed to development phase, where the team take on the development work. So usually, I don't know about any other environment, but in our environment or in my past company, we have a team lead to take on the installation of the server, the configuration of necessary features, because they know what is best for the environment. They know what is needed for as a developer by himself. He knows what is required, even for the team member. So they usually will have a main development box where they push the change. They deploy a set of code for the tester to deploy internally before it is being finalized and brought on to UNT staging or production environment, so on and so forth. So usually installation is done on a single server. No one has the luxury unless talking about having a couple of Hyper-V boxes so that they could do redundancy. But usually that's not the case, because development work losing the code is not that important, because it should probably reside in one of the source control server like TFS or etc. So if the server get corrupted, sometimes this kind of boxes runs on not to feel ashamed. Some of our development team projects run on desktop form of server. So it's just a desktop client that is being bought from Siemens Square in Singapore. So just use that in as a desktop server after you install Windows Server. So it's not that secure. So hard disk may fail, hardware might fail. So we also have another project, let's say spanning across multiple server that's running SharePoint. So if installation is done in virtual machine, usually what I see when I log into the Hyper-V server is that I see there's a lot of checkpoint being added because developer or engineers would tend to say, before I install this new feature, let's do the checkpoint, so that in case something screw up, I could just roll it back. Okay, so and developers on the team. So usually people like to work on their own laptop, or they prefer to work anywhere outside office. So they hate to do some VPN back to the office network so that they could access to the virtual machine. So they will simply copy the VHD and then run it off on their laptop. So all this accumulative stuff is that as and when part of team member feel that there's certain changes that we need to make in order to fit into the project, certain features that we need to modify against the role. They will usually do it on their own environment, and just to make sure that whatever I'm doing on my laptop, it works fine, it'll be good. But generally, most of the case, project overrun, etc. So when it's time to really start action on doing UAT, rolling out to rushing the timeline, when they start to deploy it to the UAT environment, things will get screwed up, because they may activate some of the feature or role a long time ago, like maybe 3 weeks ago, but they are really bogged down with work. They wouldn't remember. They didn't really take note on what was changed. So they didn't write down. So you spend a couple of hours trying to troubleshoot on what actually happened, what was missing. Yeah. So and any instruction on setting up any brand new development environment, it will definitely be shared by email saying that this is first cut to the team, saying that if you, in order to fulfill the project, you need .NET framework, you need ASP.NET, you need applications, you need IIS role, etc., and maybe you need another virtual machine that runs a database, etc. And this is how it should be. But on the go itself, any changes to the environment isn't conveyed directly, or even if it's conveyed, because due to the rush timeline, people tends to miss out on that email, miss out on the important changes that they need to make to the environment. That's what something I found. So there's no documentation being written, because usually documentation come after development. So they try to catch up with whatever changes they have made previously. So on the flip side, on the production deployment team, it's like I would call it the infrastructure team. So usually we have a team of engineers that set up the rack and stack, set up the server, make sure that OS is running according to what was being scoped or what license is being purchased. So there isn't a clear visibility on what was deployed on the OS, okay? Because after the OS is being deployed, it's being passed over the application team. The application team will take over and then do whatever installation or whatever deployment on it, because usually that doesn't really involve the infrastructure team. So and the team lead will often receive a similar email that was shared internally. So on what configuration is being needed, like the basic features, basic role that's needed. But even if the infrastructure team works in a very strict manner, is that if you don't send me the list of requirements, then probably I'll just give you a plain vanilla OS, and then you can do all the configuration by yourself. But later on, I will have to do the discovery. You have to let me know in documentation what is being added, so that we can park it under the monitoring to make sure that these services are critical for the project. So while engineer, often the first-hand engineer that does the fresh installation may document the installation process by doing screenshot, putting into Word document, and call it an installation guide. So that's the first cut. So that's part under one of the operational document folder. So and so forth. When more and more team members come on board, old member transit out to other projects, etc. Knowledge is not flowing from the team one to the team thereafter. So the biggest gap that we realize is that during rush hour, where changes is being made to the development or staging or production environment directly and not conveyed to the rest of the team, there's one of the gap. Then often developer will test the code on their individual computer, on their own development machine, and it will usually crash when it's being rolled over to UAT environment, or it may work on UAT environment. Hooray! I mean, internal testing is perfect. So they will ask for approval to put it across to staging or production. So things might get worse, because when it's being pushed over to staging or production environment, it start to crash, because there are certain green zone hours that is being designated so that deployment can be done. So things get worse when it crash, and hours and effort is spent on troubleshooting the staging and production environment, but to only find out that there are certain changes that is being made to the UAT environment is not being pushed over to the staging or production, other than code changes. So installation guide were written based on the initial installation and does not get updated. Once the first cut is out, there's always the tendency where engineers or developers doesn't ensure that the documents are updated, up to date. Yeah. So it leads to a huge, vast amount of troubleshooting is required. Effort is spent. All these hours are spent literally in data center or client side, where they have an on-premises deployment. this GIF doesn't work right now, but let me try to see what I can do. It doesn't work over a link. It's supposed to be a GIF with rotating image. So this is the image. So it is a GIF. Trying to say is that, you know, whenever we are adding a new role, a new feature via Server Manager, you know, what we always do is that if we have multiple servers, like in our case where we need 4 web front end, we need to repeat this whole step over and over again for 4 times across all 4 servers. And let's say that, you know, when a new server is being added to be part of the scaling out process, where we scale out resources when the number of hits of the website increase. So we need to do the same old process again, and it's pretty tedious because the one that is doing at a later part, the one that is deploying the server at a later part for the scaling portion may not be the one that initially does the installation. So he or she may not know exactly what kind of configuration is to be on the server. So most of the time, what they can do on the straightforward is that they probably have to look at the existing configuration in the other servers, and then do a copy over of all the configuration, you know, or in terms where the server goes down, hardware failure, hard disk crash, server went down, new server comes in, you need to redeploy everything all over again. So it is the kind of hassle. So the pitch is that why not let's do it the DSC way. So I'm just gonna run through a little bit on this is part of my learning progress, because I only touched on DSC for a month, just 2 months ago, but you know, was busy at work but couldn't get myself up to speed, so bear with me. So in order to set up the pool server, you need to download the module from URL, so that you know you could make any of your server, for in my case is Windows Server 2012 R2, to be a DSC pool server. So copy the archive into the folder designated program files, Windows PowerShell modules, and then next, the most important thing is create a configuration file. Okay, to tell the server, say that, you know, now we are installing this, we are putting up your clothes to make you as the pool server. You know, you need to set up IIS to host a site running on port 8080, and you need to be a compliant server. And then next is copy the PowerShell script into a designated server, then execute the PowerShell script on a designated server, and configure the DSC pool server by running start DSC configuration as shown. So this is the configuration for the nodes to pool. So this is like telling individual node, your web server, your application server, database server, what features, what role you need to have. Whether you need to be a file server, you need to be a server that runs IIS, you need to be a server that has Windows backup. Yeah, if possible. So this script tells the member server to pull the configuration. So they say that, you know, start pulling from this pull server, which I call it DSC demo-svr01. Okay, just gonna do a quick demo on So as shown, this is the configuration that I want the machine to be, and this script actually tells the member server to start pulling, to direct the member server to the pull server. So start. Can you zoom in a bit on the text? Okay. Let's see. Okay, these are the PowerShell. Okay. Oh, I already done this. This is web 72. Okay. For the bad naming convention, I was trying to connect to my office server, but pretty. So after I execute this, it's trying to tell me that, you know, based on this MOF file, look at the MOF file, the configuration, what it has, then mimic yourself exactly the way the configuration file has stated. You know, what features, what role it has inside. If it doesn't have it, install it. So let it install. This installation process will take a while because this VM is running off one of the main NAS, which is a bit slow. So the configuration is that, you know, this server doesn't have IIS installed in the first place. So I'm trying to get it to install IIS as shown in the script, saying that, you know, enable the window feature IIS and the ASP features. So right now you already say that, you know, the Windows feature IIS is already installed. Okay, all done. So I have IIS installed and ASP.NET. It should be at the top. ASP.NET. Yeah, ASP.NET 4.5. Okay, it is that easy because with this configuration file, as long as you put it across to any other machine that you want it to have the same configuration, and then runs against this configuration file, you get the same one consistent look and feel. Hold on. So, the Microsoft PowerShell team is currently constantly updating the modules that's available to be used with PowerShell DSC. So the latest resource kit that was updated on 30th September are available to download. So as you can see, last year when PowerShell DSC was introduced, I could only see that PS desired state configuration was there, but over a mere just 1 year or so, more and more modules are being created on the go. So the focus is really there for DSC to be adopted across all environment. So, and Jeffrey Snowworth is also mentioned that DSC can also do the installation for the Linux platform, so interoperability is available. So other way of other than DSC, what I can think of now is Chef and Puppet, where they exist probably way before DSC Microsoft have introduced. So it's worth checking them out. Probably Chef, from what I know, is that and what Steven Moraski has explained, it has more features available. So do check Chef out too. So, is there any question? Paul? Drew?
No questions. I'm looking for an article actually I wanted to share. If you go back to your previous slide on the available resources at the moment, there's one there called DSC Resource Designer, is it?
Yep.
Yeah. There's I'm pretty sure that in the next version of PowerShell there's something coming along. I'm just looking for the article for it actually, because in the next version you can it's introducing classes and all of that kind of thing, and that's going to make it easier to kind of write PowerShell resources. I'll share this article in the chat. It's written by actually Ravi Chiganti.
Oh, Ravi.
And I'm not sure if you're aware, but he's actually writing a book at the moment as well.
Oh, on the DSC book, right?
Yeah, that's it. I'll share the link for that as well.
Have you bought the book already? Or is in alpha now?
Yeah, I have a copy of it already. I'm reading it now.
gonna grab it later.
I do buy way too many techie books. I buy more than I actually read as well, so...
That's usually the case.
Yeah, I never complete any techie book I buy. I read most of it, and then I leave it and just like refer to it later if I need it, if I remember that I've got it. Yeah, but that's there's an early version of Ravi's book out at the moment, and it's pretty good. It's long though. There's a lot of information in there to cover, so it's going to be long, I guess. But yeah, it's good.
Yeah. Oh, it's called Windows PowerShell Desire State Review, right?
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, I just remember I bought it when he posted on Twitter the other time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I guess one question: if you have some sort of configuration on your node that's not in the MOF that you've applied, what happens?
It will detect the difference, and then it will you will somehow let the pool server knows that there's a configuration drift. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's something that I found.
So it's if you change something that's in the MOF file, it will be changed back again at the next run. But
if you change something in a MOF file, means that from the pool server, you change something in a MOF file, it will push to the member node. But if the member node changes, manually added some of the row, you return back to the MOF file, right? Yeah, that's something that I read about. And then the MOF file will be pushed back to the pool server, or you'll be hit.
I think
no, you will be on that server itself, on the network itself. Yeah.
I think like what I mean is if within your MOF you don't have, say, any mention of IIS, and then someone actually goes and adds IIS onto the box, IIS wouldn't be removed.
Yes.
Because it's not actually looking for that. So I guess where you have things that you're trying to kind of make sure are not there on your box, you actually need to make sure that you are adding those into your configuration as well, right?
It shouldn't be present.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you look at some other DSC-driven platforms, you can specifically state things in like a whitelisting way, or that things shouldn't exist or shouldn't be there. So it might just be a matter of maturity in being able to articulate that in PowerShell DSC.
Oh, yeah.
I do believe some of the other platforms, like if something is manually added outside of that, it will stop things.
Yeah, you're right. I wonder how that would work in PowerShell. I wonder if there's a way to kind of replicate that easily. I mean, the way I know it to work at the moment is you would add the component into your configuration and then declare it as being, is it absent or not present? I think it's absent. And then if it's there, it will be removed. I wonder if there's a way to kind of apply that to like a list of like products or components in one hit in kind of an easier way.
Yeah, because you still have to manually specify, so you still need to know
Each
that
one,
there may be a situation where you don't want that to exist. I think I think the whole kind of point with this kind of thing though is you're not going to be able to plan top down what the desired state is from the beginning. So you sort of start with a state that you think will work, and then something breaks, and then you add that in, and it's an evolutionary process where you get a more and more complex state configuration over time, rather than trying to predict every possibility from the beginning. So if you had good source control and you iterated through your configuration over time, it would evolve into what would be a fairly complex statement of what should be there, shouldn't be there, what's on, what's off, everything like that over time. I'm not sure you could really predict from the outset, every possibility.
Yeah, and that's actually a complete change from the way that people work now, right? Where you kind of, when you implement a new project or product, the goal is kind of always kind of have it go live in exactly the way that it is meant to be, and that you won't change it for like at least the next 2 years. And this kind of moves away from that, and it's like, okay, we'll kind of begin with this, and then we might add that and change that, and then add this, and yeah, that's I've worked within that sort of practice for at least the last 10 years, where kind of every project it's about getting it exactly right on kind of day one, and it's a real kind of habit change for people, I think.
And out of how many of those projects has it gone exactly right from day one?
Oh, none of them. But that is always the intention, because of how you're sort of charged.
No, but I think it's no different from development practices moving from that like traditional waterfall model of build everything and then launch with a big bang to build a little bit, see how it goes, build a little bit more, see how that goes, and then iterate through in those lean development practices. And now it's moving into the operations side, right, and the management side, so that you're making lots and lots of small changes that can be easily rolled back or easily assessed. If something goes wrong, you only did one or two things. And moving into a much more evolutionary kind of process of discovering the right, rather than trying to plan it, top down from the start.
Yeah.
Decide that your configuration's finished, which is kind of an illusion, right? I mean, every update you apply, everything you change affects everything else, because it's so interconnected. So you're never really done configuring your environment. You're always got to be working and maintaining it.
Yeah. So I guess that would kind of change the way kind of like IT projects and things run as well, because normally you have like your operational teams who kind of keep things running as they are now.
Yep.
And they are kind of paid for one way, and then you have a budget for projects which is paid for another way. And so you then have kind of like project teams and things who all have a kind of like a limited amount of time, and the money for the project actually runs out at a particular time as well.
Yep.
So you need to have a kind of end date, and so I wonder if that will mean people kind of roll project budget into operational and just run it all as one now, or if what the initial project is meant to kind of deliver and implement becomes a much smaller piece of work potentially, and then most of the other work which it would have actually completed as well, operations would then kind of take on and implement it via kind of evolution.
Yeah, I think funding, actually, it's a good point, because funding defines a lot of the way projects are done. For example, even in a lot of countries where they still have a very CapEx-based model, so they're told you've got this much money to spend on this technology this year, right? And what they're looking to do is buy a solution up front, and if they expect that they won't get money for that technology for another 3 years, they need to find a solution with 3 years support, pay all up front, and they're not interested in service provider models and moving to OpEx because they're not funded that way, right? They get no benefit whatsoever. If they don't spend the money this quarter, they're going to lose it. They can't say, hey, can I amortize this, over 3 years? So that drives their decisions in a very different way from, more matured organizations that have already seen the benefits and the funding's changed. So as long as projects are funded in that way, the IT organization is sort of forced into operating that way, right? Otherwise, the headcount just disappears or whatever. But it's again, you can see all of the changes that happened in development cycles. I mean, product design and everything like that was done around a project model. Now, I mean, a developer doesn't get paid for every release he pushes out, right?
Yeah.
It's just an ongoing process of tinier and tinier cycles and smaller, like the definition of a project gets smaller and smaller into it's just a deliverable. And as long as they're turning out those deliverables on time and at quality, they keep their job. If they don't, they get fired. But it's not based around this finite scope of, you exist to just get to this defined point, and then, that's the end of it. So you're right, though. It could be a big inhibitor in a lot of, especially big organizations that take a long time to change. If management and finance don't change, then there's no way to implement these new technologies. But you'll probably find that those type of organizations lag behind as well and become uncompetitive quite quickly from organizations that do make that paradigm shift.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right, I think. And it's potentially interesting as well about what that could actually mean in terms of kind of job opportunities as well. I know a lot of people who are contractors who have pretty much had a career of kind of working on kind of implementation and project teams where they'll have like a contract for a year for a particular kind of implementation and architecture piece of work. And if if IT moves into kind of less of that and more into kind of evolving the platform in smaller pieces of work, it will be interesting to see how that changes as well, potentially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you then start to have more continuous delivery models where you need to have somebody in-house that just come and go. Mm-hmm. But then there's still always work for consulting, and then it moves into almost more product management type role where you have to define what are the requirements that we're trying to meet, and scoping that. But I don't think you'll see, these big 12 or even 6 months projects. You'll start getting things where things are rolling out every 2 months or even shorter cycles, but much smaller scope of works that accumulate over time. But you're right, until things are funded that way, it's something that people need to see the benefit from a management and finance perspective in changing their organization that way, and probably management in IT as well, wanting to move that way. If the guy in charge gets, a lot of people's compensation is what's your headcount that you manage. That's how much you get paid. So they want big, heavy teams. They don't want to restructure and get like a lean, more effective team, because it's mean they're going to lose money. So
yeah, potentially though, it won't actually change things very much, because like I mentioned how I know people who kind of get taken on for like a year to work on a particular piece of work. All this way of work enables is for you to kind of roll out chunks of that work quicker. So rather than kind of having to wait for the whole year for the whole lot to complete, you just release it in kind of batches. So I guess from the job or kind of project side, you may continue to have like projects which run for like a year or 2 years kind of thing, but they're just committed to having more and more releases actually within that time.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, there's always a role for a specialist, that might not be needed long term. But that's true. It could just shift into that kind of model.
Yeah. Either way, it'll be good to sort of like watch how it all plays out. Lots is a changing in IT now, isn't it? So. Cool. I guess there are no other questions to Milton. Yes, no.
Okay, I'll stop this recording.